good afternoon, good people. It's your boy, Leroy McKenzie Jr., coming to you live this afternoon with the author showcase brought to you by the National, the National, the National Black Unity News newspaper and JNF Enterprises for bringing you the some of the just greatest articles, some of the greatest authors, writers of the 21st century, what I call this, and just a national newspaper, international newspaper that is geared towards the community, being in the community, for the community, about the community, just wanting to give you those stories that you're not going to readily hear about, giving you those authors that you're not readily going to actually maybe hear about, see, and even hear conversations from. And that's what we're here to do for you with the author showcases, to bring you some authors that have some phenomenal stories, have a great message, a great mission. They're motivational and they have some great movements as well. So today is no different than any other. And I got a special guest, y'all. I just enjoy having the conversation with that I've had and have had with this young lady who has been in entrepreneurship, has been in politics. So I want to get right to it. I'm going to let her introduce herself and talk a little bit about who she is. You all that are from Baltimore, if you're not familiar with her, you better be familiar with who she is and know who she is, because she is one of Baltimore's finest. She may not be from Baltimore, but we consider her to be a Baltimorean because she's been here. She's been here long enough to
I've been
be
a long time.
a Baltimorean, and I just love her to death. And I want to thank her for coming in and taking time out to be a part of the author showcase and to be able to speak with us just about the new book that she has coming out and the great things that she's doing. And it's none other than Senator Barbara Robinson. So, Senator, how are you today? How you doing?
Absolutely fantastic. I am honored to be on your show. Uh, I've been anticipating it all day because you have a great following, and I wanted to be a part of that and to speak with your viewers and your listeners. And you had sent me some great questions that I really did want to get into. And I said, I don't have to do anything else except, just be prepared to deal with the questions that you sent. Uh, you ask a little bit about myself. So you don't ask a politician to tell them about himself because see, you have to ring the bell and say, stop, it's time to stop talking. But I'm from Alabama, actually. And I was born in a little place where there was no roads, dirt roads, actually. And I didn't have a refrigerator until I got to Morgan. There was no indoor plumbing. We had to go up a little vine covered trail to get to our outhouse.
Okay.
And so a lot of people don't know what that is. And that's what this book is about. This is my latest book. This is book number 8. I've written, okay.
I got mine, y'all.
I've written 11 books. 8 have been published. Number 9 will be out before the last of this year. But that's what this book is about. It says from the outhouse to the courthouse to the state house. And it amuses me that a lot of people really don't know what an outhouse is. And I have several pictures of them hanging on the wall of one of my bathrooms. But my first book, And Still I Cry, I should have all my books in here, but well, you know what, Tarika, want to get copies. Anyway, my first book is And Still I Cry. And that talks about my background from Alabama and how I got to Baltimore on the train and all of those things with getting up, going to the bathroom, and my dress torn, and going to surplus store to buy men neckties, and that's what I tied my luggage up with coming to Baltimore. So that first book talks about all of those things of how I actually got to Baltimore. But I didn't have, and it also talks about how my sister and I had go to the to the ice house to get ice to go in in our ice box.
Right.
And it talks about me being abused physically and sexually by my stepfather. And all of those things, and also abused by my mother, who was an alcoholic and eventually died from the disease. So it talks about all of those kind of things, all of those things that people use as excuses for not succeeding in life. As a matter of fact, my 7th grade teacher told me that I would never graduate from high school. And she says, you know what, I doubt if you'll ever make it to the 12th grade.
Wow.
And that was because, it wasn't because I wasn't smart, because my name stayed on the honor roll so much. They used to put honor students' name on the blackboard, and my name stayed up there so long that when it was at the end of the year, when they went to erase the board, wash the board, my name was still up there. Yeah, bring me copies of my books, please. I just talk, all of them. So when I was, so it wasn't the fact that I wasn't smart. It was that everybody knew about my family. Everybody knew that old drunk Louise is what they used to call me. That was my mother's name.
Oh, wow.
Everybody knew I was old drunk Louise's daughter. And everybody knew Sergeant Cofield. And as a matter of fact, the kids used to stand outside and listen to me holler when he would beat me. So it's, those were the turbulent times, very grave times for me. But I started writing when I was in the 6th grade.
Really? Okay.
I wrote poems when I was in the 6th grade. When I was in the 7th grade, I was the editor of the school paper. As a matter of fact, I started the school paper. And I also wrote a column in there, The Editor Speaks. And I wrote another column in there called Smile a While with Jokes. And when I was in the 8th grade, I wrote my first play.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And when I wrote all through school, and I used to write to heal. That was a way for me to escape the situation that I was in, because through my writing, I could be who I wanted to be. I could live wherever I wanted to live. But now, as I became an adult, I write for the sheer joy of writing. As a matter of fact, my first book, thank you. Can you see? These are all of my books.
Oh my goodness.
These are all of the books that I have read.
That's what I'm talking
about. This first book, this is an autobiography.
Okay, And Still I Cry.
And Still I Cry, that's the story of my life. And this is how to, yes, you can. How to start and operate a business while pursuing your personal goals. I was a business owner for a little over 30 years.
Yes.
And I started a business in the basement of my home, and took that to a multi-million-dollar corporation with 162 people on my payroll. And I started that with an unemployment check.
Come on now. Did y'all hear that? Hold on, wait a minute. Say that one more time for the folks that did. You started your business with what?
Unemployment check.
Come on.
people at the when I was working at the courthouse, and they always called me a militant and radical, and because I was always fighting for Black issues,
Mm.
and I talk about that in this latest book, Through It All.
Uh-huh.
And I mean, I had been called the N-word so often, I thought that they thought that was my first name.
Mhm,
And I
mhm.
also talk about going to work, and there's a hangman's noose on my desk.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And I also talk about if there was an article in the paper about somebody getting killed. When I went in there one day, a Black person had gotten killed, and on my desk was that article cut out of the newspaper, and across it was written, "This could happen to you too, nigger."
Wow.
So
Wow.
after working in that system for 18 years,
Mhm.
I resigned, and some of the judges tried to stop me from resigning, but I said, if y'all leave me alone, I'll leave you alone. If
Mm.
you if you try to stop me, then I'll go to the media. But if you back off and just leave me alone. So they tried to stop me from drawing unemployment. Couldn't do that. So
Mhm.
I drew unemployment, and I used that unemployment check and started a business in the basement of my home, my first business, which was Star Associates Inc.
Right.
Then I started 5 years later, I started another one, Self Pride Inc.
Mhm.
And then I started up Buma LLC to house my writings.
Okay.
They even tried to stop me from purchasing homes. Under my Self Pride, I had purchased 10 homes.
Okay. Okay.
And I was using that to provide community-based residential facilities to people with developmental disabilities.
Okay. Okay.
Uh, this is book number 3. It's a romance novel.
Okay.
And this is book number 4. It says Stop Procrastinating. That's called Someday Is Now.
Mm.
And this is number 5. This contains 54 original poems and
Oh, okay.
2,000 motivational quotes.
So you're a poet too? You
Oh,
write
yeah.
poetry?
And you know what? And I never knew that. I was at the Arena Playhouse where there were a group of authors. And
Mm.
so I thought that we were all there to talk about our books,
Okay.
but everybody going up on stage was a poet.
Poet.
And
Oh
I was not a
wow.
poet. So I asked the master of ceremony, I said, call me last. So I sat in the back of the auditorium, and I wrote a poem called Live Your Dream.
Oh
So when it was
wow.
time for me to go up, I read that poem, Live Your Dream, and people wanted to buy it. And I said, I can't buy it. You sell you this because it's on a yellow piece of paper scratched out, So then I went home, and I just couldn't stop writing. It was just pouring out. And by the time I finished, I had 54 original poems.
Wow, I love it.
And 2,000 motivational quotes. And this is called Mind Bungee Jumping. And that's
Wow.
exactly what my mind was, bungee jumping.
I love it. I love it. And see, that I didn't know about you, son. I didn't know that you were a poet and had that you'd done that, because I love that, because I'm a poet as well, and written a couple books of poetry, and that comes from the heart.
It
You
does.
being able to sit down
That's right.
like that in the
That's
back
right.
of a room in less than what, let's say 25 minutes or so to put a
Yes.
poem together.
Yeah.
Wow, that's
Yeah.
awesome. That is awesome.
This is number 6. After my husband passed, my husband and I were together for 47 years.
Okay.
And
Okay.
he just walked into the office one day and said, my nose won't stop bleeding. And 3 weeks later, I planned a funeral.
Oh
And
no.
that's what this book is about. It's called Bend in the Road, Reinventing Yourself After the Death of a Loved One.
Mm, mm.
And this is number 7. This is another romance novel called Love's Second Chance.
Mhm.
And you can see how big
Yeah, that's
that
yeah,
is.
that's
And this is number 8. This is the one that we're talking about now. That you're the one that you have a copy of. So
let me ask you this. because your books are diverse in what you've written about. They're about business, but then also you have the novels, and then you have the book of poetry. How were you able to? Was there a particular reason that you went into those different areas, or was that just because that was just kind of like the diverseness of who you were and within the things that you wanted to write about?
God has put me on such this journey
Mhm.
of coming from the South and going through all the things that I did, working in private industry and then working in the court system and
Right.
then handling my own business and then going into the state and all of these things. My misery birthed my ministry.
Mm.
And
Mhm.
so my books are a tale of my journey through life.
Right. Right. Right.
And each one of my books talks about something in my life that happened.
Okay. Okay.
Uh, and it's even like my romance novels, it's people I've met along the way.
That's what I was going to say. How do you go from business books to a romance
Absolutely,
novels?
absolutely, absolutely. I talk about the rough road of me coming along. I talk about business, the ups and downs of being in business. I've taught at 3 different colleges in Baltimore. I've
Mhm.
taught
Mhm.
entrepreneurship, and I use my own material for that. And my
Okay.
first company, Star Associates Inc., I used my own material doing training from Mexico to Texas and all over, nationally, internationally, including Bahamas and Nassau.
Mhm.
I've done training, even the material that I used when I was in Africa. I went there to train women in business,
Okay.
and I used my material for that. And I used my material when I was in the court system when they said that they couldn't find qualified Blacks.
Uh-huh.
Then I wrote the material for them to find qualified Blacks
Right.
because I trained Blacks to be qualified.
Mhm.
So all of those things I talk about, even in the book on romance, there are 10 women. Some of those women are me,
Mm.
and some of them are friends that I've known along the way. And I talk about their things, what they've done in life, and then how they used all of their material, all their life experiences to come together to form an organization called Woman Power.
Mhm. Mhm.
Uh, and in that book, it's a male, it's life actually. It's two females together. It's two males. It's male female. It's black white, etc. All of these are things that I encountered along my journey in life. And I'm going to write, and that's what I tell individuals, they said, well, what do you write about? You write about anything you big and bad enough to write about. Because I have, as I said, I've written 11 books, and 2 of them are children's books. I'm going to release a children's book. I'm going to release a murder mystery.
Wow.
I'm going to release another book of motivational sayings.
Mhm.
When I get up to 5,000, I'm up to like 4,000 and something now. And when
Wow.
I get to 5,000, then I'm going to release that book. And that's what I tell people, you don't worry about what other people say about you.
Yeah.
It's what you say about yourself that's important.
Yeah.
Um,
Absolutely.
and that's the way that I write. I write about what I feel like writing about, you
And
know.
that's
And
brilliant.
and and if anybody is in their 60s or 70s, I know there's at least 2 books, and write about how you got there.
Mm.
Because
Mm.
your past is still somebody else's future.
Absolutely.
So just write about that. And I just write for the sheer enjoyment of writing.
Yeah. And I love that because I remember, and this was years ago, I was attending a men's conference at my church, and we were on the bus going to one of the workshops, one of the breakout sessions, and we're on the bus, and this young guy, you know how young guys can get, you think you know everything. He's popping off at the mouth, and an older gentleman on the bus, he said, "Young fella, let me tell you something." He said, "Your future is my past. And
That's
I've
right.
never forgot that.
That's right.
That has always stayed with me. And it taught me exactly what you just said, that those of us that have and where we are in life, it's our obligation to teach the generation that's behind us about those things and to show them those experiences so that they don't have to encounter some of them.
That's
But
right.
then also that they actually know how to handle situations, how to
That's right.
handle certain circumstances, because you all are teaching us how to go through things. I was just talking about that earlier today, about when you use your voice, when you use books such as that you're writing, it shows us that those of us that are coming behind you, how to navigate, how to get through those instances and situations that we're not familiar with, that we
That's
haven't
right.
gone through. And what better way to be able to understand it than to have somebody that has told you, look, I've gone through where you're going through,
That's
and
right.
here's what I've done, and you can learn from that. So I appreciate you saying that, and that is vitally important, that we, that we understand that, those of us that are coming behind you all, that we understand that, and we take the lesson. We sit at you all's feet and learn the lesson that you all want to tell us and leave for us, and that's why I love the fact that you've written, 10 books, 11 books, because that's a lot of lessons in all of them. That's a lot of lessons, all of them.
I talk about what it was like to work in a white male dominated
Yes.
workforce in the 1950s, 60s, and 70s and early 80s. Now, so many other people weren't born during those times. And I talk about me and Doris Brody. She was Doris Harris when I first met her. We integrated the restrooms in the court system.
Yes.
We also started Black women being able to wear the natural hairstyle to work in the court system. And I also started women being able to wear pants in the workplace, because they were allowed to wear short skirts, but we couldn't wear pants. And so I talk about that whole way that came about. And I talk about Sandra Banks, when I'm the first woman and the first African-American in the 300 so history of the court system to be deputy administrator of the district court, the circuit court, and the Supreme Bench. Well, the Supreme Bench, which is now circuit court. And they wanted to put a white woman there, but they couldn't get over the fact that I had more experience. It started out with 250, and then it was another 100, and then it was 50, and they couldn't get over it took 18 years for me to get my bachelor's degree, but I got it. But during the time I'm getting that bachelor's degree, I'm also getting experience. So education and experience, that's a hard combination to beat. So they wanted me to become clerk of the court, which is clerk of the court now, but when it first started out, it was called super clerk.
Okay.
So Sandra Banks, I called her, and she and I put our heads together, and I talked Sandra into running for a super clerk. And she said, okay, she would run if I would write her speech.
Okay.
So,
okay.
Had I gone, that would have moved out of the position I was in. And then it would have been one white woman and one Black woman heading the court system. But if Sandra had won, which she did, then it was two Black women running the court system. So that's what we did. So now it's called clerk of the court. And after Sandra left, it was taken over by Frank Conaway Sr. But during those times, they were trying everything they could to keep Blacks out of top positions.
Absolutely.
But then you come around, and I've never been a spook that sat by the door. So, and when one judge said either resign or I'll fire you, I said, put it in writing. And he was dumb enough to do that.
Wow.
And I took that letter and I put it in my drawer at home. And I went to Africa. And I spent some time there training women. And then when I came back from Africa, I did not want to work for anybody else. And that's when I started building my own company.
Okay. Okay.
And you know, I was in business. I even bought my own building, actually, about a block and a half from the harbor, downtown on Montgomery Street. And so I was there for about 35 years. And then when the state started sending individuals from nursing homes and mental institutions into the community to live, but they weren't giving contracts to Black folks. And when they did, we fought for that. And I talk about that in my book as well. And when I did get a contract, there are over 250 something healthcare providers, only 5 of us Blacks. And they tried to get us to merge, and we wouldn't, you know. So they conveniently shut down 2 companies. And then when they came after Barbara Robinson, then I started fighting them. And they tried their best to push me into bankruptcy. First, they said that I owed $2 million in back pay. And then they said I owed $1.5 million. Then it was $1 million. Then it came down to 800,000. By the time it got down to 560 something thousand, I gave them a check. And then I decided to, well, I didn't. My attorney said, we need you to be on the inside because there's not many Black women out here that could have taken that financial hit and still stand. So then I put my hat in to run for a seat in the House of Delegates. Nobody was going to do, you know, contributing the money to me because I didn't know politicians. I knew folks on welfare because I used to be on welfare. I lived in Flag Court Projects for 12 years. I was on welfare, and I could talk to them about standing up on Green Mountain Avenue, getting government cheese and welfare and butter, powdered eggs and powdered milk, etc. I could talk about welfare reform. President Clinton had already recognized me as one of the individuals, you know, working in welfare reform. I had already won the key to the city in 3 different states for work that I had done, but I did not know anybody in Maryland in politics. I didn't know any fat cats that could donate to my campaign either. So when I got a political strategist, first it was Art Murphy, then Art got really sick and he couldn't help me anymore. Then I got Julius Henson. And then they told me that I needed $100,000 or so to run in my campaign. So I wrote a check for $100,000. But the great thing was that,
wait a minute. Now you just glossed over that. You
that's
just
right.
Let me just write this check.
So when I went to Annapolis, I didn't owe nobody nothing other than the folks that voted for me. You know, I didn't owe nobody could donate to my campaign and I'll donate this month this much if you do so and so. Nah. You know, the people I know, you know, they could donate $25, $10, but nobody, I didn't know anybody could put $1,000 or $2,000 in my campaign. So I gave it to myself. And see, God put me in that position to be able to do that. And I talk about that in the book. You know, I talk about people that I call sleazy politicians. I talk about individuals that tried to stop me from running where I did run. And I name names. And I talk about some of the politicians that supposed to have been helping me in the 80s. And they said, I'll get back to you. And here it is with 2000 something. I'm still waiting for them to get back to me.
Back to you, right?
Yeah, I'm still waiting for them. And they are not even politicians anymore. You know, I talk and I name names. So this book, you know, that's one of the things that, one of the reasons I wrote it. I want people to look at the folks that you send to Annapolis
Mm,
And the people that do go to Annapolis and realize, I mean, they'll show up for a photo op,
right.
but they won't show up when somebody really needs help.
Mm,
And they need to understand that they, we were there as public servants. We didn't get to be in those positions because we were promoted on the job.
right.
No, it wasn't on the job promotion. We were elected because people needed us to be a voice in Annapolis.
Absolutely.
And that's what I
Absolutely.
was, and as I said, I didn't go to Annapolis to make friends. I had friends before I got there. I didn't go to Annapolis to make a name for myself. I had already made names for myself before I got there.
Mm-hmm,
And I
mm-hmm,
felt that I didn't see anybody in Annapolis who looked like me, who could represent me.
mm-hmm,
And I wanted to represent minority women, minority businesses, especially those in the healthcare industry. Uh, and I did, I did. But see, God has a reason for, for people to move on because he has something else for me to do. And I just love where I am now, who I am now.
Now,
Uh,
can you tell me about what has been, or what was your experience like writing this book? I know you have the other one, the other seven that you've written prior, but
mhm.
was there something different about writing this book that you experienced than that you did with the other books that you've written?
Yeah, because when people look at me as being a senator,
Hmm. Hmm.
and then they look at all of the accomplishments that I've accumulated over the years. I have two etajets that's filled with trophies. And in my office here, I don't even have any more room to put citations up on my walls. But all of those are things that I actually accomplished, some became, before I was in the House of Delegates, but certainly before I became a senator.
Hmm.
And so I wanted people to, when they look at me, I wanted them to not see this person with all of these things, if she's done all of this and she's this and whatever. I want them to see that it was a journey, that it was a
Hmm.
process
Right.
to get from where I was to where I am. And I want them to see how I started out, and I started out with less than a whole lot of people. But yet a whole lot of people will use their condition as excuses for not doing what they want to do in life. And I wanted them to understand that their condition did not have to be their conclusion, because it certainly was not mine. And I also wanted individuals to look at some of the politicians that you actually sent to Annapolis to represent you,
Mm,
and for you to see where they were not representing you, and how you should actually pay attention to who it is that you're sending to represent you. That's number one. I
right.
also wanted to write about agencies, state agencies that were designed to provide services to people in the community, or to provide services to people, period. But they were not. For example, Department of Social Services. I had written legislation because I wanted the legislative auditors to audit their records, which they did. And then they learned that $12 million was misappropriated at the Department of Social Services. And when I asked for explanation, nothing has been done yet. Yet one of the politicians is running around bragging about being the chief of staff at the Department of Social Services. But nothing has been done about the $12 million that was supposed to be going to families and children. And they even lied that said that the money was going to families and children when it did not.
Hmm.
I also wanted to write the book to keep the name of Emmanuel Johnson alive. This was a 5-month-old baby that was beaten to death by his father.
Oh, wow.
And 3 siblings had already been removed from the home because this man had abused them. And the grandmother begged the Department of Social Services social worker not to send this baby home to this man. And she did anyway.
Anyway,
The next door neighbor talked about seeing blood coming from this baby's eyes. And they also talked about the social worker going to the home and standing outside talking to the father without going in to check on the baby.
Wow.
And, you know, the reason that I am so not going to let that go is because it reminds me of me when I was beaten by my stepfather. And I can remember kneeling with my hands clasped in front of me, begging him not to kill me because he was beating me with a broom handle. This little 5-month-old precious life could not do that. He couldn't ward the blows off. He could only lay there, take it, and die. I met with the grandmother. I met with the 3 siblings that left the home, that were removed from the home. I met with the grandfather. I met with the attorney. I met with them in my office, and I also met with them at their home. You know, and for a long time, the grandmother had to take counseling because she couldn't get over the thought of her grandchild being beaten to death. You know, so I talk about all of those things in this book because I figure if I reduce that to writing, if I elevate it to writing, if I put it in writing, then it will not be gone, forgotten. And one of the bills that I had put in was called Grandparents' Bill of Rights. It didn't pass, but that was one of the reasons that I wanted to go back to see that that bill did pass, because I think that grandparents should have more rights. When there's a divorce between 2 people, grandparents should not be excluded from the children, you know, and I fought for that. And I also wanted to have more accountability for state agencies to have more accountability, and they don't, you know, they don't. Those were some of the things that I wanted to do when I went back to Annapolis.
Wow. Let me ask you this. What does the title Through It All mean to you?
Through it all means to me that God brought me through all those things. God brought me through the years when I was called nigger. You know, I'd go into work and I'd pick up the telephone, it would ring as soon as I get there in the morning. Hello, and then somebody'd go, hello, nigger. Thanksgiving, they'd call me happy Thanksgiving, nigger. Merry Christmas, you know, so all of those years, but God brought me through. And you know that some of those people that carried me through all of that mess, when I left, they were still there. But God had kept elevating me, elevating me, elevating me. You know, through it all means that I went through all the things that I had to go through in order to become who I am. All of the welfare, the projects, homelessness. I was homeless at 16. And all the things that I didn't have. And I used to wish that I did, you know, such as clothes. I had used to, when I was in high school, I would, during summertime, I would go into the white folks section in Alabama and knock on the door and ask if I could be a maid for that summer. That's how I bought my clothes to go to school. And my aunt used to send us clothes from New York from the people that she worked for. And I can also remember going to school with a string tied around my shoe to keep the sole from flapping.
Oh, wow.
You know? So I can remember all of those things, even in the projects, you know, flat courts projects, the way that we actually came through those turbulent years. And I had even written something. It says, through it all, God did care. Through it all, God was there. through it all, he brought me through. And what he did for me, he'll do for you through it all. And, you know, even all of these books, you know, but God, you know, so he brought me through all. And if you read all of my books, you'll see what I mean when I say through it all, because he brought me through all these 8 books. Yeah. As a matter of fact, one of the another books that I'm going to put out, it's Granny's Fables. My grandma's fables. I don't know why I'm going to give the name, because by the time I'm finished, it'll change the name anyway. And that's what happens. You know, I'll start writing, and then by the time I get through, it's totally taken a different name.
Right.
You know, the book has come alive.
Mm-hmm.
You know, when I was writing one of my books, I was sitting in my office, and like one character is talking to another. I said, "Oh no, so you don't want to say that? Oh no, you shouldn't have said that." And I'm crying, you know. So one of the books is called, as I said, Grandma's Stories, and these are stories that my grandparents and Mr. Johnson next door used to tell us. You know, we kids used to sit outside after we had finished the supper dishes on the weekend. And we'd sit out there and they would tell us ghost stories. So those ghost stories from the old folks, I used to say, when they used to tell us kids. So it's the collection of those stories that's in one of the books that I'm going to put out. And then I have another book that's Herky the Pink Elephant. You know, I'm fighting with my niece now, Dr. Jackson, and I love her so much. She's a great doctor. Anyway, she's a Delta, and I'm AKA. So when I say I'm going to, you know, we pink and green, and she's red and white. So when I say I'm having a pink, and the elephant is their mascot, Ivy is ours. So when I tell her I'm going to have a pink elephant, she says, "Oh, that's blasphemy."
Absolutely. Now, talking about through it all, can you give us, 3 keys to understanding going through it all?
I can give you an overview.
Mm-hmm.
Through It All is a book that discusses what it was like for an African-American woman to work in a white male-dominated workforce in the 50s, 60s, 70s, and 80s. It traces retired Maryland State Senator Barbara Robinson's journey from humble beginnings during those racially turbulent years, from the outhouse in the South in Georgia and Alabama to Maryland's courthouse, the municipal court, the district court, the Supreme Bench, and the circuit court, to the boardroom of a successful business enterprise that I founded, Self Pride, Star Associate Inc., and Buma LLC. The book discusses intimidation and corruption in Maryland's politics and the events along the journey of the author's successful career. It discusses her successful efforts to integrate the restrooms in the Maryland court system, for women to be allowed to wear pants to work, and the rights for African-American women to wear the natural hairstyle in the workplace. She discusses her involvement as a member of a team that developed the court clerk. Also, she talks about enduring being called the N-word on a regular basis, and the intimidation with the hangman's noose, as I also talked about that. Through It All discusses how under the auspices of the Community College of Baltimore, at that time it was called CCB, now it's called Baltimore City Community College. I developed an on-the-job training program and wrote the curriculum, and the Sun paper called it the first in the nation. And I wrote that in order to train people who worked in the court system, who worked in the police department, and some people just outside to get promotions, to earn a higher salary in the court system. And the book is an effort to educate readers about how some minority-owned and operated businesses endured obstacles and challenges in the 1960s, 70s, and 80s yet they succeeded against the odds. It's a story about a Black woman's journey from humble beginnings in the 1950s and how she faced racism, sexism, gender biases, workforce discrimination, disparate treatment, and on-the-job sexual harassment from white male supervisors in a male-dominated workforce. The book highlights the negative activities of state agencies, as I talked about. And through it all, highlights some of Maryland's African-American women trailblazers. And I talk about those trailblazers who forged a path of endurance and left a legacy of hope, and who made a difference in Maryland's history. It sends the message that we have hidden figures in our own society in Maryland. And the book is my 8th book, as I said. I talk about women in here who history might never mention, like Hattie Harrison, Delegate Hattie Harrison, Delegate Ruth Kirk. I sat at their feet when I first got to the House of Delegates in order to learn what it was that I needed to do in order to put in bills. And for a whole year, I did absolutely nothing except follow them around and learn. Wow. It talks about Gloria Luster at City Hall, who took me under her wing and taught me how to get contracts from the city. It talks about Hattie Harris, Doris Harris. She was Doris Harris, but Doris Brody, who with me integrated the restrooms in the court system for those coming behind us. It talks about Bonnie McCrae, Mary B. McCrae, who implemented an accounting system in the court system, because when I went there, I was stamping W's in books. And she in the court system was doing the accounting system manually. She's the one that put it together. All these Black women that people don't know anything about.
Right.
And Bonnie and I went back to University of Baltimore together. And I think we were the oldest ones in class, getting those degrees in order to come back and work in a court system that was fighting Black folks. So the book talks about all of these things that people really don't know about. They don't know their background. They didn't know about the court system. They don't know about the court, the clerk of the court. People at the court system now, they just know that they can wear their hair the way they want, dress the way they want, but we set the pace in order for them to do that. They don't know anything about when I became deputy administrator of the district court. I put Black employees in my car, and we drove to Annapolis in order to be able to wear our natural hairstyle, or how I had to work in that position for a year without the salary of that position, just to prove that I could do it. So all of those things are some of the things that individuals really don't know. They don't know anything about Lena K. Lee, and but all of our people on whose shoulders we stand are not necessarily Black folks.
Right.
Because Judge Borgany, a white judge, I went to him and told him that I needed to go to school during the day, because all of the subjects that I needed were only offered during the daytime. And I worked during the day. So he created a night shift at the district court just for me. I was the only person on that night shift, working alone at night, just so I can finish that last semester at University of Baltimore, because I had started out at Morgan.
Okay.
And for the first 4 years, for the first 3 years, actually, I was at Morgan. And that last year I was at University of Baltimore, only because it was around the corner from the court system. And I could take 18 credits during the day and then walk around the corner and work until 12 o'clock at night, and then go home and take care of 4 babies, a dog, and a husband.
Wow.
So when I tell people that It took 18 years for me to get a college degree. That's because I'm saying don't give up. Now I have degrees from the University of Baltimore, Johns Hopkins Administration, Johns Hopkins University, Coppin State University, and 19 certificates from University of Maryland, the conflict resolution, management development, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But it was that first step that was the hardest, you know. So it doesn't matter how old you are or how long you've been going. If you can dream it, you can do it. And you don't let anybody tell you that you are too old, too short, too fat, too anything to do what you want to do. You know, let nobody define your limitations. And don't sell yourself short. You know, you're the only one that can live. You can only one going to die for yourself. You should be the only one that's going to live by yourself. You know, and so many of us, you know, we go to our grave with our songs unsung and our books unwritten, you know, and our poems unheard, et cetera, et cetera. I got a whole lot of left in me. I don't intend to, I'm about as retired as I ever will be. I will retire when God calls me home.
I hear that. I know that. Now, how important is it for us to tell our stories and to leave a legacy? Because I'm working with a couple of gentlemen. He's an older gentleman too, and he's writing his story. He's beginning to write his story, and I have two other gentlemen. They're beginning to write their stories, and how important is that? And how important is that to your legacy and what?
As a matter of fact, do I have time to read my legacy or not?
Go ahead. No, go absolutely. Go ahead.
It's chapter 24 in this book. So maybe we don't have that kind of time left.
No, well, yeah, we don't have that long to read the whole chapter and everything, but you can give us the gist of it if you want to read a piece of it or part of it. Absolutely.
Okay, then stop me when we run out of time. Okay.
Okay.
Just say that's enough.
Okay.
Or just say cut. Just say.
Okay.
I want my life to be a legacy for generations coming behind me, and this is chapter 24 in this book. I wish for them to look at my record and appreciate that, yes, life is hard, life is not fair, but you can achieve your definition of success if you believe you can. I want my life to leave the message that regardless of what hand life deals you, play it. If life gives you a lemon, don't just make lemonade, make a lemon cake, lemon tea, lemon sticks, and then anything else that you can use for that lemon. And use the rind too, and make lemon zest. I want to leave the message that sometimes things that look like obstacles and feel like obstacles are really blessings. People believe that are really blessings. I believe that people should use life until it's used up. Don't go to your grave with regrets of what you could have done. The saddest words of tongue or pen are the simple words, I could have been. I want to leave a message for future generations of African-American people, especially women, for those who are living in my lifetime, to understand that we will deal with and be confronted by racism and discrimination as long as there are differences in people. You can't let narrow-minded people stunt your emotional and intellectual growth and development by making you think that you are not worthwhile. And don't let anyone take away your self-esteem or diminish your self-confidence. People may tell you that you are too old for certain positions, too old to perform certain tasks, too old to wear certain clothes or certain colors. But you tell those people, the older the wine, the greater the kick. Or you say to them, growing old is nothing more than a bad habit that a busy person ain't got no time to form. Then you go out, you dance to your own tune. You decide what's too old, and don't let anyone define your limitations. It's your life and your decision of how it should be lived. You are the only person who can stand in judgment of your own actions and your own behaviors. You should be the only one making decisions about how your life should be lived. I leave this legacy for those trailblazers who have gone on before me with hopes that they can be proud of what I have done with my life and with the lessons that I learned from them, because it is on their shoulders I stand. My legacy is about those slaves who gave their blood, sweat, tears, and pain so that generations of Black people will be free from physical bondage. It is about those slaves who found tree stumps and other landmarks to use as places to worship. It is a legacy to honor my sheroes and heroes who came on this earth before me and made a place for me and helped shape my life. My reason for writing this book is so that I can share with the world that it doesn't matter where you started, it's where you end up that makes the difference. Through all the pain, the disrespect, the discrimination, the abuse, through it all, God saw me through. It was when I was at my lowest, when God was truly there. When I was alone, God was there. That is the reason that I love the poem Footprints, because when I looked around and saw only one set of footprints and I thought I was alone, that was when God was carrying me. Looking at my background by society's definition, I should be a dysfunctional person today, mentally incompetent, and certainly not responsible for my actions. I was abused as a child, and that alone should normally have ruled out my chances of becoming a success in life. A childhood of abuse is a heavy burden to place on your shoulders all of your life. But I am responsible for my own actions. I chose not to be a product of my past and chose to be a product of my own choosing. I wanted to become what and who I wanted to be in life. It took time, effort, planning, patience, faith, hard work, risk, self-confidence, skills, perseverance, and it still then and it still now takes God. During our lifetime, each of us has the same amount of currency to spend on our lives. How we spend that currency determines who and what we become in life. We operate under two types of currency, Earth's and God's. Earth's currency is called money. God's currency is called time. And how we spend God's currency determines how much of Earth's currency we can obtain and maintain. And if one looks at my background and sees the mistakes that I've made in life, the many potholes I've stepped in throughout life, and compare my past to theirs, I'm sure there will be many similarities. But don't be ashamed of what you've done in life. You can't go back and change the past, but you can learn from it. Learn from your mistakes and use that knowledge to help others and to help yourself. Write about your life. Let those coming behind you use your footprints as a guide around certain obstacles. If you have lived to be in your 60s, 70s, and older, you have lived long enough to write several books. Write about how you survived in this mean, cruel, competitive, envious world. Write about the wisdom that only age can bring. Your past is still somebody else's future. Write about how you made it through the hard times, the lean years, and the happy years. So many people need encouragement and to be motivated every once in a while. Send some words of encouragement to those who need to hear that they are not alone in their sufferings. I wrote this book so that others can see how God has blessed an old sinner such as I. And if he can take my life, and use it for his good, he'll do the same for others. Just as he brought me through it all, he'll bring you through it too. This book is a thank you card to God for looking beyond my faults and seeing my possibilities and turning those into capabilities, then utilizing my abilities for the glory of his work. It's a thank you card to my mother, who taught me that regardless of what the world says or thinks about me, it's what I think about myself that define my character. It's a thank you card to my grandmother, who taught me that as long as I trust in God and myself, all things are possible. It's a thank you card to my late husband. Although he is not here to share this birth of this book with me, he did remain my companion for over 40 years. And I thank him for hanging on for the long ride through life. He taught me forgiveness and understanding. It's a thank you card to my children, who taught me the meaning of joy, hope, patience, compassion, and unconditional love. I have enjoyed so many things in life through their eyes for the first time again. It's a thank you card for my ancestors for the suffering that they endured so that I might have a better chance at life than was afforded them. It's a thank you card for those on whose shoulders I stand, for paving a way for me and for squaring their shoulders in the face of adversity and allowing me to lean on them. In the early 1980s, when the late Sandra Banks was chief clerk of the court and asked me to write her speech for several political events, I declined. I didn't think I was good enough. When the late Tony Fulton was campaigning for a seat in the Maryland House of Delegates, he asked me to be his campaign manager. I declined again because once again, I didn't think that I was good enough, nor was I interested in politics at that time. But it's ironic that after Tony's death, 20 years later, I won the election to a seat in the House of Delegates in the same legislative district he had represented. The message that I received from that was that God was saying to me, it's time to dance to a new tune. So let your life make a difference. When you leave this world, leave your footprints in the sand of time. You can accomplish this by reflecting on what you need to do to make a lasting impression in the world. Everybody isn't good at everything, but you are good at something. What has your life been like all of your years? What can you get involved in and love what you're doing? What will people say about you when you're gone? Let them say how much you inspired them to be the best that they can be and how honored they are that you were in their life. You will want your family members yet unborn to say your existence made a difference in their existence, and they are proud that you lived through it all.
I love that. Ladies and gentlemen, Senator Barbara Robinson, through it all. Y'all need to go out and pick this book up. Where can they pick up? How can they order the book? How can they buy the book?
They can get it on Amazon.com, or they can go to my website, barbararobinson.info, or they can email me their address, and that's Barbara4025@verizon.net. That's Barbara4025 at verizon.net, or they may send me, correspond with me at P.O. Box 7667, Baltimore, Maryland, 21207.
Absolutely. Senator, this has been a pleasure. It has been an honor to be able to sit and talk with you, to sit and learn from you, and just to hear you tell not just about the book, but to tell your story and to inspire us and to let us know, like you said, that there's no limitations. The only limitations we have are the ones that we put a place on ourselves.
That's right.
So I thank you for coming on to the Author Showcase, talking with us. pouring into us, and that's how I see it. It's pouring into us, those of us that are able to just take in everything that you just said, because you poured and taught us so much just in this hour that we've been here and talking about the great, not accomplishments, but just to show us how to get through it all. Those obstacles that they come, but how when we persevere and when we put God first, that we can get through it all and all those things. So I just thank you for being with us today. And we want to thank you for the opportunity to be able to speak with you, because I know you're a busy lady too. You may be retired from politics, but you sure enough not retired. So
Never.
but I appreciate you joining us. We thank you thank those for watching. Those that will see the replay of this, we want to thank y'all. We want y'all to go out, get the book Through It All by Senator Barbara Robinson. Give the information where they can pick it up one more time before we go.
Amazon.com or my website, which is www.barbararobinson.info. My email, barbara4025@verizon.net, or P.O. Box 7667, Baltimore, Maryland 21207.
Thank you, Senator. This has been another episode.
Oh, and listen to my podcast.
Yeah, yes,
So
absolutely.
I have a podcast on, follow me on YouTube, on Facebook. That's every Thursday at 6 p.m. That's on my Facebook. Subscribe. And also the last Wednesday of every month, I do a podcast, Christian Widows and Widowers from Nigeria.
Oh, wow.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And that's broadcast from Nigeria. So see me, you won't. So that means that you're not getting rid of me. Plus, I got another book that's coming out.
Absolutely, absolutely. I love it. I love it. I love
and
it.
we're also going to record And Still I Cry. We're going in the studio the last of this week in order to put that on our audio.
Oh, cool. Okay. Oh, that's awesome. That is awesome. Awesome. So I want to thank y'all for tuning in to another episode of the Author Showcase, brought to you by the National Black Unity News. Hope you can see that, National Black Unity News. And you can actually go to our website, www.tnbun.com. We want you to subscribe to the newspaper to be able to get your subscriptions. You can go to our Facebook page, join our, don't forget to like our Facebook page, but then also our YouTube channel, where we have other great authors that have been a part of the showcase that you can watch their interviews as well. To be able to just learn of some great authors, writers that we have and that have come through the Author Showcase, that are part of the showcase, because we understand that this platform gives authors the opportunity to be able to talk about not just their books, but to talk about the missions, the messages, their motivation, and the movements that they may have or be a part of. So it's awesome to have them come and talk. We have great authors such as Senator Robinson. She has 10 books. Y'all go to the website and you can buy all of the books. You want to buy all of them. And I know that you will be greatly pleased by reading any and all of them. It's a great way for you to be able to not just be educated, but the financial, the educational literacy, I should say, is important as well, because we need to be able to read. And the way that we get educated is by reading and by understanding and knowing. So we want to thank y'all for tuning in. It's your boy, Leroy McKenzie Jr. This is 2020, y'all, 2021, you all. And as I say, we want to leave the familiar and to elevate your influence. And what better way to do that by reading a book, but not just reading a book, but also understanding. Through it all, you can make it. Through it all, you can inspire. And through it all, you can write a book too.
That's right. That's right.
We will talk to y'all soon, and we will see you all next time. Thanks for tuning in.
Thank you so much. Bye now.